Hi everyone. Now you'll hear a brief retelling of the movie Jack the Giant Slayer. Enjoy the watch. A village boy named Jack had been afraid of giants since childhood. He even had a book about them. According to legend, long ago monks planted seeds from which a giant stalk grew. The monks climbed up the stalk, but up top they were met by evil giants. The giants climbed down, began robbing and devouring the little humans. The cunning monks cut out the heart of one giant and, using magic, smelted it into a magical crown. With the help of this crown, the king at the time, Eric, was able to control the giants and sent them back up to their upper realm. The stalks were chopped down, the king was buried, and along with him the crown and a couple of beans. Since then, the giants have dreamed of coming down again and taking revenge on the shorties. Today, everyone thinks it's just a common legend, a fairy tale for little kids. The same kind of fairy tale the Queen once read to her daughter Isabel. 10 years have passed since then. Jack's dad died, and his uncle sent him to town to sell the horse and the cart. In town, Jack first of all stopped by the local dwarf theatre. There he noticed a pretty girl. And, by the way, he wasn't the only one. Some drunks started harassing the girl. Jack stood up for her and immediately got punched. He could have gotten it in the kidneys too, but the royal guard pulled up to the theatre. Because this wasn't an ordinary girl, it was Princess Isabel. She was taken back to the castle, and dumb Jack discovered that his cart had been stolen. Lord Roderick, the king's advisor and the main contender for Isabel's hand, caught sight of a suspicious monk. It turned out that Baldy had robbed Roderick, although the advisor himself had earlier looted King Eric's tomb, taking his crown. Close the city gates. Take men and find that monk. The monk realized he was trapped. Luckily, he spotted a village dope. He convinced the guy to trade the horse for a handful of beans. Jack's wise beyond his years, so he shook on it. The main thing is don't get them wet, the monk said and rode off on a white horse. Though the spy still couldn't leave the city. He was caught by guards. The uncle is shocked at what an idiot he took in. Instead of a cart and horse, he came home with a pile of beans. The man dumped the beans on the floor and one of them fell under a floorboard. The king is chewing out his daughter. For some reason, the girl refuses to marry Roderick, a man twice her age. And she's also forbidden to leave the castle. That same night, the girl disobeyed her father's order, pulled her hat down low, and snuck out of the castle at night in the rain. The monk was tortured all day, but he never confessed where he put the magic beans. So Roderick just stabbed the witness. The princess realized too late that the time for a walk had been chosen poorly. She knocked on the nearest house. She was lucky that Simple Jack lived there, and not, for example, the drunks who had harassed her earlier that day. The girl was sure she was well disguised, but Jack immediately realized that the king's daughter had dropped by. Thanks for defending my honor, Jack. Meanwhile, rainwater soaked the bean. The cat sensed something was wrong first. A second later, a giant stork shot into the sky. Just like in the fairy tales, these two were read as kids. The princess was trapped inside that shed and it dragged her to the very top. Jack tried to free her with a hatchet for a while, but slid down the stalk. Jack woke up surrounded by the royal guard and the king himself. He told them that this GMO overgrown stalk had dragged his house and the princess up top. The knights were ordered to climb up and bring Isabel back. Jack and Roderick with his lackey would go there too. Captain of the guard Elmont and his chubby-cheeked buddy constantly teased the village guy. It's important that he doesn't drool over the princess. As a commoner, he doesn't stand a chance anyway. At night it rained hard. The servants and knights slipped off the stalk and hung on one rope. Roderick ordered his henchmen to cut the rope, and he happily obeyed. Half the squad went flying down. In the morning, waking up, Jack saw stone heads of giants and his little house hanging on the edge of a giant plateau. Elmont found the princess's tracks and led his team forward. The commander shared his provisions, which he kept in his socks. There's no other food. The provisions died with those who carried them. Roderick and his nasty weasel started pressuring Jack. The advisor figured out that the country bumpkin was hiding the rest of the beans. He took them, but Jack still hid one bean. Meanwhile, a tent city was set up at the stalk's base. 6 bodies lay on the ground, which apparently fell off the stalk completely by accident. Jack found his little book in a cave. So the princess was hiding here. And judging by the broken branches, a giant carried her off. The group split up. Good guy Elmont saw sheep. He suggested catching, slaughtering, and eating them. But the people themselves became prey. Chubby and Jack fell into a trap prepared by a giant. They managed to free themselves at the last moment when the giant showed up. Chubby hid behind a tree, and all Jack could do was take a deep breath and lie at the bottom of a puddle. The giant bit a lamb's head off, then noticed the cheek sticking out from behind the tree. The guardsman tried to run, but the giant caught him in a couple of steps and squashed him. Elmont attacked the monster with his toothpick. The giant kicked him and picked him up too. 2 baked humans are better than 1. Roderick and his companions reached the edge of the cliff. The bald guy was in his way. The weasel wanted to stab him, but the advisor just shoved the knight off. Interesting why people always scream so loudly before death. Roderick could have also turned into fertilizer, but he managed to pull out the crown, which immediately lit up. Meanwhile, Jack discovered the giant's cave. There the princess was put in a cage and interrogated. The head giant wants to know where the other little people are hiding. He recognized King Eric's descendant by smell, because Fallon and his stinky friends participated in the first raid hundreds of years ago. The captured guardsmen were also brought here. Chubby was too sassy, so he ended up without a head. The chief ate him raw. But the princess was wanted by the giant with the drunk's face, Fallon's main political rival. Usually their argument ended with a punch to the face. However, as of today, Roderick, wearing the magic crown on his head, will command all the giants. He ordered the chief to get down on his knees and climbed onto the throne of bones using him. Good job, Roderick. Have them free us. I'm talking to the giants, actually. With the help of the giants, Roderick plans to seize the kingdom, and then the whole world. That was his original plan. Elmont was delivered to the kitchen. The local Gordon Ramsay started with an overture of his own snot, then rolled the knight in dough and laid him next to the piggies, who faced the same fate. Jack ran up to him but didn't have time to cut the dough. The cook skewered the preps with skewers. You could say Elmont got lucky, the skewer missed him. But now he'll be baked alive in the oven. Sniffing his armpit, the giant got distracted by greens. The cook was about to gut the princess, but Jack came to the rescue and stabbed the cannibal himself with a knife. The guy panicked and accidentally stuck the knife into himself up to the hilt. Just like that, Jack became a giant slayer. Meanwhile below, the tenth city had turned into a full-blown fair. The king is torn by doubts, to chop the stalk or not, is it worth risking it for his daughter? Up top, Roderick found out the prisoners escaped and for some reason sent only 1 giant after them. But the most decorated one. Worker of the month was supposed to guard the descent, but fell asleep right away. Jack found a huge piece of honeycomb and tossed it under the giant's visor. Waking up, the armored guy barely got his helmet off. He was already standing on the edge of the cliff. And one particularly nasty bean knocked him into the abyss. Now the trio can go down. However, Elmont wanted to stay to take revenge on two-faced Roderick and take the crown from him. Below, the monks were praying hard, and the heavens sent them a gift, a giant who squashed everyone. The king decided the kingdom was more important than his daughter, so he ordered the stalk chopped down. Isabel didn't know about that setup, so she was climbing down slowly, unhurried. Look how many lights. What are they doing down there? Getting ready to meet us. But the people were actually soaring away at the stalk the princess was sitting on. The giants approached the descent only the next morning. Roderick got off his stretcher and walked over to look at the chasm. That's exactly where the assassin Elmont was waiting for him. He jumped on the traitor with a knife and they fell into the cave together. The giants wanted to get rid of the tiny usurper immediately and started filling the cave with stones. During the fight, it turned out the captain of the guard was weaker than the elderly official. Roderick almost stabbed him. Luckily a knife floated by in the stream and Elmont attacked the enemy with his mouth. A second later the captain lost a second time and hung over the abyss. Roderick started cutting his fingers, but Elmont somehow stabbed the two-faced guy. Roderick crawled to the giants with his last strength and died. Fallon took the crown and slipped it on his fingers like a ring. Now everyone will obey him unquestioningly. Even Oleg the Mongol. The princess and her buddy almost made it down, but the stalk was already damaged enough to fall and kill a bunch of people. Its fall turned into a real catastrophe. Elmont jumped into the last car and also went flying down. Jack came up with the idea to descend from the falling stalk on a vine like Tarzan and landed softly on a stack of hay. The end of the monstrous plant fell right by the castle. The king was very sad, but not for long. The village guy delivered his daughter to him safe and sound. For his efforts he got a small pouch of gold. This is where their paths with the princess would diverge. However, it wasn't over yet. The little noggin noticed the pouch of beans. Fallon immediately threw them into the stream. 5 new stalks appeared, which the giants would use as ropes. Jack was the last to leave the tent city. He was the first to learn about another invasion. Luckily, his white horse was hanging around nearby. So the farmer's son rushed to warn the king about the giant landing. Though the giants didn't take long to arrive, they easily caught up with the riders and killed most of them. At the castle, they're preparing to repel a siege. First thing, tar was poured into the moat and set on fire. Everyone rode into the castle except Jack. No one plans to wait for him, so they started raising the bridge. The guy was saved again by the white steed, but Fallon, attacked by arrows, fell into the hot sludge and went under. At that moment, power passed to the opposition, but it turned out the 2-headed one survived and swam toward the underground tunnels. The other giants began besieging the castle. Using hooks, they tried to lower the bridge again. The princess and Jack jumped into a secret passage to get to the beacon and warn the neighbors of trouble. The giants were already hungry. They can't wait to get to the little people and snack on human flesh. The monsters started throwing burning trees at the defenders. At that moment, through the tunnels, a charred Fallon broke into the throne room. It seemed just a little more and the giants would break through, but machine guns entered the fray. They mowed down many giants. However, Oleg took one out with a slingshot. The champion hammer thrower destroyed the second weapon. The princess hid from a giant in a photo zone. Too bad he can smell her, so the people had to run again. Fallon still grabbed the girl and her sassy buddy. "Who are you?" "I'm Jack." "You're ugly." Fallon was going to swallow Jack, but the guy tossed the last bean into his throat. The stalk started growing right out of the giant, tearing his carcass to pieces. By that point, the people had lost the battle and were already prepared to be trampled by giant fate. Oleg entered the courtyard hoping to snack, but got distracted by yet another stalk, which this time demolished not a farmer's house but an entire castle. In the next second, all the giants got on one knee, because Jack came out of the crowd and put the crown on his head without permission. He forced the giants to get back home, and the king happily gave his daughter to the ordinary village guy. They had a very progressive family. The son and daughter slept in the same bed. Over the years, King Eric's crown was additionally decorated and now it's shown to schoolchildren in a museum. A little squirt named Rodri lingered by the crown. This is the descendant of the traitor Roderick, who is also plotting some nastiness involving giants.